السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. مساكم الله بالخير. Good evening to each and every one of you. Welcome to the Minaratain building. For tonight's program, I know there's been a lot of events going on this November and December. The weather's nice here, so a lot of events happen. And a lot of the events have also been focusing on Palestine, which it should. And it's one of the few things that we can do, and I think we can definitely inform ourselves if we didn't know better or we didn't know, and take this opportunity to learn at these events, to be able to kind of, triangulate that with what we're seeing in the media, and then to be able to at least find out in whatever sphere of influence we have to kind of do something. Of course, we can make du'as, and that is one of the strongest tools that a believer has, and we believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and that He accepts our du'as. But we also do have other ways that we can make a difference, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created us and given us a voice, and we should use that voice. It could be a written voice, it could be a silent voice, but it is a voice. And tonight, inshallah, the program will have a very distinguished speaker who is going to be speaking about an experience that is very personal, and one that many of us, I just turned 41 yesterday, many of us in the 90s who were kids definitely saw what was happening on TV at that time. And even though it might have seemed far away, it's not about the geography or the location, but it's about how we're connected as human beings from the very beginning, the beginning of the human story. So, with that said, I'd like to first invite to the stage the Dean of the College of Islamic Studies to give his introductory remarks and to set the stage for our speaker's lecture and storytelling later on. Please, Dr. Rajab Shenturk, give him a warm applause.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسولنا وحبيبنا وطبيب قلوبنا وشفي ذنوبنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين ربنا آتنا من لدنك رحمة وهيئ لنا من أمرنا رشدا اللهم انصر من نصر الدين فاجعلنا منهم واخذل من خذل الدين ولا تجعلنا منهم. Tonight we are honored with the presence of Dr.Bisera Turkovic with us, and I believe she is one of the best people, on the face of the earth, to help us, understand what's going on in Palestine at the moment, because she's been through something like this. This reminds me one joke, Nasreddin Hoja Juha joke. Juha fell from his donkey. And they said, let's bring a doctor. He said, no, don't bring a doctor. Bring somebody who fell from donkey, who went through the same experience. So, our Bosnian brothers and sisters, they went through this tragedy before. So I believe her own story, her own experience, her own testimony will help us better understand what's happening in Palestine at the moment. As CIS, we organized many activities and many events. This will be the last, for this semester, but inshallah, next semester there will be even more. Our goal in organizing these events is create more awareness and help the public, in particular our students, to better understand historical, political, international, legal, ethical, theological dimensions of the issue, Israel and Palestine conflict. The aspects that are not explored by the media, because the media focuses on today. their memory is not so deep, you know. And their also understanding may not be so deep. So our goal is to provide a deeper understanding. And because we are scholars, social scientists, we always put things in a comparative perspective and analyze the causes of the events. Journalists, they focus on particular event and they make a nice story for this particular event. But scholars, they focus on similar events and try to come up with a general theory of understanding similar events. Ibn Khaldun calls it juz'iyat and kulliyat. You know, journalists and event historians, they focus on the juz'iyat. The scholars, they focus on the kulliyat. You know, let's say genocide happened in Bosnia. A journalist writes a nice story about genocide in Bosnia, and another genocide in Palestine. He or she writes another story about that. Another one in Iraq, another one in Afghanistan, another one in Syria. So, they analyze each event separately. But social scientists, scholars, they put all of them together, then try to understand what causes genocide. Okay? So this is the question I want to pose to you tonight. What causes genocide in this age, and why those people who commit genocide get away without penalty, without punishment? My answer is that there is an hegemonic system in the world which makes this possible. I attended Doha Forum, and in the opening, the head of United Nations, Mr. Guterres, spoke, and he confessed that UN is inactive. It's disabled. Why? Because there is a power structure, which makes it impossible to intervene any genocide, any massacre. If one of the 5 superpowers want, they can block everything. So he said we could not do anything in Ukraine, we could not do anything in Bosnia, we could not do anything in Palestine. So it's a powerless that organization because of this wrong global governance. So people ask, like, what we should do, to contribute to the solution. From a social scientific perspective, we should focus on the global hegemonic system, which makes genocides possible and which allows those criminals get away without any punishment. So, like, it happened in Bosnia, it happened in Iraq, it happened in Afghanistan, now it's happening in Palestine, and next day it may happen somewhere, and those people, they know that they can commit massacre and then they can get away from it. But if we can change the global hegemonic system, and establish a just global governance, a system that will not allow criminals to commit genocide or massacre, and if they do it, not to leave them alone without any punishment. So we should focus on this. Look at the kulliyat. Look at the kulliyat, not just the juz'i particular events, but the whole system. Come up with a systemic understanding, and what can we do to change the global system in such a way that it will not allow these kind of things to happen, and even if somehow it happens, those who commit those crimes should be punished. So these are some ideas like I wanted to share with you, and I was working on the sustainability of civilization in the world. And when I witnessed this event, we got together with scholars at CIS, and we launched like a new brainstorming working group. How can we come up with a paradigm of sustainable civilization? Sustainable civilization, and civilization requires morality, a global morality, commonly shared values. But unfortunately, today we focus only on the environment. If 10,000 dogs or cats or fish, had been killed somewhere, they would bring the world upside down. See what I mean? Animal rights, environment, etc., etc. Now, around 20,000 people, have been killed, and every day they keep killing more and more. And those innocent children and women, some people are so silent, so we have a lot of lessons to learn. But I think the most important thing is to, revive the global normative foundation, a global ethics for the whole humanity. So with these ideas, I would like to invite our honorable guest. But before that, Süleyman will introduce her and give some information about her biography. They told me that I should sit here, but I prefer sitting there so that I can see her better and listen to her better. And once again, thank you very much for coming over. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Jazakallah khairan, Dr. Rajab. So I would like to kind of say a couple of things before I introduce Dr. Bisera Turkovic. This is, I want to say, like her home, so welcome back home. She was, when I first met her and I was here as a student and I had just started working here as well, she was the acting ambassador. She was the ambassador of Bosnia and Herzegovina here in Qatar. And Education City Mosque was also her mosque, and we became her community. And she would be here on Fridays whenever she was able to participate in different community activities and events that we were doing. So it's great to kind of see her back home. And even though she has traveled and been around many different places since she left here in Qatar. The other thing that I wanted to say as well was that when I was growing up and I was seeing what was going on in Bosnia, I'd never, ever imagined that one day I would actually get to go to that country and get to teach in that country and get to live and stay with a host family and see the country through their eyes. And then, those kids that I was teaching were not themselves witnesses of what had happened in Bosnia, but they were the children of survivors or people who were, at the time of the genocide and the war in Bosnia, children themselves. So it's a very sad thing that sometimes, like I said, just because of geography, you might feel like, what can I do for them? They're far away. And then one day, actually end up being in that place. And then you see either survivors or the children of those survivors. And then you may be faced with that question of, where were you? And what did you do when this was going on and this was happening? So with that said, I would like to give you a little bit of a bio on Dr. Bisera Turkovic. She is a leading Bosnian diplomat and a scholar. She was the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Bosnia and Herzegovina from 2019 to 2023, and then the Deputy Prime Minister of Bosnia and Herzegovina. She was the first female Minister of Foreign Affairs of Bosnia and Herzegovina, and was earlier the country's first bilateral ambassador. Dr. Turkovic holds a degree in law from the University of Sarajevo and a degree in criminal justice administration from the Philipp Institute of Technology in Melbourne, Australia, now RMIT. She also holds a PhD in international relations from the Pacific Western University, now known as California Miramar University. At the beginning of the 1990s, Dr. Bisera Turkovic worked as the first chief editor of the Hayat television in Sarajevo. She was also one of the founding members of the Party of the Democratic Action and a close ally of the late President Arije Izetbegovic, first president of Bosnia and Herzegovina. Her first assignments as ambassador for Bosnia and Herzegovina were to Croatia, Hungary, and to the Organization for the European Security and Cooperation in Vienna. From 2000 until 2001, Dr. Bisera Turkovic was appointed as Minister of European Integration of Bosnia and Herzegovina. She then served as ambassador to the United Nations in many different agencies, and also in Vienna. And in 2005, she was appointed as Bosnia and Herzegovina's ambassador to the United States, Brazil, and Mexico, and then went on to serve as ambassador to Belgium, Luxembourg, and Qatar until her appointment as the Minister of Foreign Affairs. So you can see, mashallah, tabarakallah, the journey that she has taken. She has been a member of the Bosnia's Party of Democratic Action since 1991. She has also worked as Chief Director at the Center for Security Studies, as well as professor at the Faculty of Criminalistics, Criminology, and Security Studies at the University of Sarajevo. She was also adjunct professor at the International University of Sarajevo and Webster University in Vienna, as well as a guest lecturer at various universities around the world, including George Washington University in DC. So a diplomat with a long career and a scholar as well, and an academician with a long career, coming back to tell us a very personal story of what happened in Bosnia in the 1990s, especially what we know as the genocide in Srebrenica, and then to talk and to kind of look at that vis-a-vis what is happening currently as we speak, as we sit here in Gaza and Palestine as a whole. Dr. Turkovic, please welcome to the stage, and thank you for honoring us tonight.
Assalamu alaikum to everybody. Very glad to be here, very honored. Thank you to my brother Recep, Dean of the university, who invited me to come, and I gladly accepted it. Indeed, as we called him Suljo, as Suljo said, yes, I feel like being back home, and actually maybe even more home here than in my own country, due to nice people and due also to freedom, religious freedom, which you are enjoying here. So let's start with our tonight topic, and it is Srebrenica versus Gaza. When I was thinking about telling my story, or rather comparison in between those two, when I was thinking about that, I actually start with examining a genocide convention to see and to grasp why Srebrenica has been regarded as a country where genocide has been committed, and Palestine is still fighting for recognition that what is happening, which is in a way much worse than that what's happened in Bosnia, is still not allowed to call it properly by genocide. You know that we do have legal structure which are going to decide, and they are deciding case by case. So it's not really that fully standards are being applied, and applicability of those standards is sometimes rather under political pressure and political influence than anything else. So when we go back to convention, or rather, if I can have just for introduction a slide number 2, which is offering us just background of the conflict in Gaza. I don't know if you can read it or I need to read it. If you can read, fantastic, then I can go ahead. There have been international debates and accusations regarding whether actions in the Gaza conflict amount to genocide. Some human rights organizations are claiming, and they activists are really arguing and trying to push for recognition of genocide in Gaza. But there are also others who are telling that there are no fulfilled preconditions. You know that, we all know who is on the side who is denying that genocide has been committed despite the huge number of victims, starting from United States, from American President Biden, who still cannot accept that a genocide is being committed in Gaza and followed by other leaders, by Sunak in Great Britain, by some other big, let's say, big guys who are taking very hard reality, despite the fact that thousands and thousands, hundreds of thousands people are marching through the street and telling them that they want peace and they want equality for people in Gaza. So they are not terrorists, as very often they're being called. They are just wanted, and they want equality. So if we may go on slide number 3, which tells us essence about Genocide Convention. The Genocide Convention, as you can see, since its adoption in 1948, basically has established elements which are essential for genocide. First is intent. Intent is something what is very important. Intent to destroy group of people, so not individual. We have to deal with a group. And then there are also something what is, I would say, the third pillar, beside dynamic and beside group. There are also dynamic of violence on the ground, which needs to be proven in order that some case might be regarded as a genocide. So we have elements which might contribute towards judging some situation like Gaza situation to be a genocide. Killing members of the group, serious bodily or mental harm, physical destruction, prevention of births, and also forceful transferring children from one group to another group. There are quite few elements, and they should be recognized and they should be proven. But as I said, intent, it is the most difficult element to determine, and it is element which actually is having the major role when we are talking about genocide. So intent must be proven on the part of perpetrator, so-called dolus specialis, that perpetrator has intention physically to destroy national, ethnical, racial, or religious group. In both cases, we had it, and we'll go, once when we go through the case, I'll give you example where I see that intent is quite clear, actually, school example of intent. But as I said, there are also those who are denying and who are trying to say, no, it's not genocide, it might be or might not be war crimes, which include also torture, mutilation, corporal punishment, hostage taking, and so on and so forth. War crimes is often connected with war. There are also crimes against humanity, which are not necessarily connected with the war, but also consist of murder, deportation, torture, rape, and there are something what is relatively new, ethnic cleansing. It has been new terminology starting from the war in Bosnia, and ethnic cleansing basically are talking about cleaning geographic area, get rid of ethnic groups by deportation, forcible displacement, or even genocide from certain territory. And all cultural traces has to be removed. So very often we have pulling down mosques, or in some cases churches, cemeteries, houses of worship. So those three do not have that heavy accusation as genocide has. of course, punishment is not the same and consequences are not the same. So let me talk a little bit about Srebrenica first to understand and then to come in situation to compare it with Gaza. If I can have slide 4, please. Srebrenica is small city in the eastern part of Bosnia and Herzegovina. And Bosnia and Herzegovina was one of the 6 republics in former Yugoslavia. So Yugoslavia existed till basically 1992. Then dissolution started in 1991, and slowly it shrinked and shrinked. When we are talking about Bosnia and Herzegovina, then it is important to say that in Bosnia and Herzegovina, we have a really multicultural society. We used to have 33% of Serbs who are Orthodox, 17% of Croats who are Roman Catholics, and in 90s, it used to be 44% of Bosniak who are Muslims. When Yugoslavia was going through the process of dissolution in 1990s, European community recognized independence of Croatia and of Slovenia, and they invited Bosnia and Herzegovina to apply for recognition through the referendum. So when decision was supposed to be brought in the parliament of Bosnia and Herzegovina on October 14, 1991, leader of Bosnian Serbs in the parliament, he threatened Bosnian Muslim population by saying, quote, "Do not think that you are not leading Bosnia and Herzegovina straight to hell and the Muslim nation into disappearance, since the Muslims cannot defend themselves in the case of war." End of quote. So it was first announcement what is going to happen. A referendum on independence was held 1st of March 1992, and then a few days after that, more precisely on 6th of April 92, Bosnia was recognized as independent and sovereign state by a European community, and it was enough that Yugoslav army, supported by paramilitary groups, basically conquer 70% of entire Bosnian territory. So you have newly proclaimed state, and then you have big, huge army, which was pulling towards Serbia, who offended Bosnia. What's happened and why Bosnians were not prepared to defend? They were just recognized, and in 1992, Bosnia had 2 tanks and 2 armed personnel vehicles. On the other side, Serbs had 300 tanks and 200 personnel carriers. So you may draw a comparison now in between Palestine on one side and Israel, which is nuclear power, and Palestine people who are basically without any, or used to be without any armament. So Bosnian Serbs try to seize territory in eastern Bosnia and Herzegovina with intention to join it to Serbia proper. How it was going then, and how intent was proved in the case of Bosnia and Herzegovina proclaiming genocide. In March 1995, leader of Bosnian Serbs, Radovan Karadzic, gave an order to military forces. And again, quote, what did he say? He said, "Create an unbearable situation of total insecurity with no hope of further survival or life for the inhabitants of Srebrenica." Why? Because Srebrenica was in eastern part, it was close to border with Serbia, and the announcement was quite clear that he wants to ethnically cleanse that part, same as it is happening with Gaza now. It's quite clear that Israel wants to ethnically cleanse that part of the Palestine. The offensive commenced on July 6, 1995, and Bosnian Serb force advanced from the south, burning houses, looting, killing all people whom they found on their way. People were fleeing houses, they were running, they were trying to find some protection, and thousands of civilians left Srebrenica for nearby village, Potočari, where a contingent of 200 Dutch peacekeeper was stationed. So they hope they are going to protect them. They hope they are going to hide them from Serbian forces and onslaught which is going on. The women, children, and elderly were placed, unfortunately, on buses which were brought from Serbia, and everything was prepared to move them, to ethnically cleanse the territory, and they were driven to Bosniak-held territory. Males, even male children, were put on other side. And more than 8,000 men disappeared after being taken on the territory controlled of Bosnian Serbs, where they were killed. So all that happens in a matter of few days. On July 11th, commander of Bosnian Serbs, by name Ratko Mladic, strolled through Srebrenica, and a statement recorded on film by Serb journalists said, again, quote, "We give this town to Serb nation. The time has come to take revenge on Muslims." Let's go further to see intent and to show elements of intent. Expert on Islam by name Miroljub Jevtic wrote, quote, "If you want to exterminate a Turk," very often Bosnian Muslims calling Turks in Bosnia, "so you must exterminate every single part of him. Every little part of the Turk's body must be exterminated completely." End of quote. All those were inputs which were given and fed soldiers what they need to do. So hatred was growing up. Or, as Bosnian Serb leaders stated, quote, "From the historical, political, and every other point of views, this elimination of the enclaves, Muslim enclaves, must be the top priority interest and goal of the Serbs if the Serbs want to survive." Or, quote, "They are all terrorists and jihadists." It's quite interesting, exactly the same words which we heard in case of Gaza, absolutely the same. So same language was being used then as it is being used now. People being under the siege, forcefully evacuated, brutally beaten, tortured, mutilated, and it was happening and is happening today. In both cases, same scenario. In both cases, retaliation has been used for justification. So what's happened in Bosnia? Slide 5, please. As you can see, the International Criminal Tribunal for former Yugoslavia concluded that the killings in Srebrenica, compounded by the mass expulsion of Bosniak civilians, amounted to genocide. It is, I would say, a big, big victory to have judgment that indeed genocide happened in the country. And this is something what people in Gaza hoping, and many friends of them are hoping that they might come to the conclusion that genocide happened in Gaza. And we'll come later to that, why genocide and sentence of genocide is so important. It is indeed more than important. So how we come to that stage? It was a long and difficult way to collect evidence, witness statements, material proof. The process of location, the graves, and identification, the victims, was really complicated. Soldiers dig up mass graves and move the remains to distant sites. You would find one body in 5 different places. And you would collect bones. And it was very difficult, again, to prove whom those bones are belonging to. And then, in 2010, the International Commission on Missing Persons, a non-governmental organization established in 1996, 1 year after the war, had used DNA samples to identify more than 6,400 individual victims. So it was a big boom. Something finally started to roll down. And of course, it was very difficult to live with all of those elements which was present in Bosnian everyday life. Just for example, one report from Serbian government from 2005, those who tried to deny genocide, but they stated that 19,473 Bosnian Serbs were implicated in the killings, hundreds of whom remained in official governmental position. So despite end of the war, despite peace agreement, you have those who were perpetrator of crime still holding positions. And you have to live with them. And you have to accuse their leaders for genocide. And you have to collect evidence. It was extremely hard. And mothers of Srebrenica knows the best how hard it was. But they were persuasive. And they continue fighting and fighting to discover at least small bones of their children or husband or members of family. Finally, the UN Criminal Tribunal eventually indicated more than 20 people for their involvement. But it is not in a short period of time. So even if genocide is ever going to be recognized in Gaza, we cannot expect that sentence is going to be very soon. First sentence in Srebrenica case has been issued 6 years after genocide happened. First one. In 2001, it convicted Radoslav Krstić, commander of the Bosnian Serb, responsible for the Srebrenica area, for genocide and murder. And it was first conviction. And then it started rolling on. In 2003, 8 years later, Momir Nikolic, and then 15 years later, in 2010, 3 of them, Vujadin Popovic, Ljubiša Beara, Drago Nikolic, all 3 of them sentenced for genocide. And then in 2011, we have something what was relatively new. A Dutch appeal court ruled that the Netherlands was responsible for the death of 3 Bosniak, which they did not allow to be protected by Dutch troops. They forced them out of the UN compound, and they have been killed once they were forced. Then we have sort of improvement. In July 2014, the Dutch government was found liable by a Dutch court for the deaths of more than 300 Bosniak men and boys at Srebrenica. And it ruled compensation to their relatives. Finally, we are coming to big ones. 21 years later, after signing peace agreement, 21 years later, Karadzic, main guy, was found guilty of genocide. He was hiding for 13 years in Serbia. As well, he was accused for war crimes, crimes against humanity, genocide, and sentence was issued to spend 40 years in prison. And then the biggest fish in November 2017, 23 years later, Mladic, who was hiding for 6 years in Serbia, has found guilty of genocide, war crimes, and crimes against humanity, and was sentenced for life in prison. So, situation was rolling on. In 2017, Dutch appeal court ruled that Netherlands also is responsible for 30% of those who have been killed because they have not been protected. And finally, Kofi Annan, UN Secretary, in his internal review in 1999 published, quote, through error, misjudgment, and an inability to recognize the scope of the civilian confronting of the evil confronting us, we fail to do our part to help save the people of Srebrenica from the Serb campaign of mass murder. Slide 6, please. So, let's go now, or let's focus on Gaza. I'm not going to go through history because these days you are watching every day and there are numerous talks. But I want to compare and to state what is important for accusation for genocide. And as I said, it is still very much debated. Intent, as we said, is something what is absolutely the most important to establish genocide. And I would claim that intent is clearly articulated in the case of Gaza. It is articulated throughout Israel media and society and politics. Shocking language by members of parliament, by journalists, on social media, in public speeches, and you all, I'm certain, heard calling to annihilate Gaza, to destroy Gaza, to flatten Gaza, to kill everyone. All those are quotes. What is also worth mentioning is that it is articulated by people with command authority, articulated by state leaders, by members of war cabinet. So it is much more serious because it is showing policy, it is showing intent of the state and not sins of individuals. To mention just a few of them, and there are much, much more. President Herzog said, quote, all the nation there, all Palestinians in Gaza are responsible for the Hamas attack, end of quote. So he was trying to portray all Palestinians as legitimate enemy targets. Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu was saying, again quote, we'll turn Gaza into rubble. And it's indeed happened. Then on 29th of October 2023, Israel was starting ground invasion and Netanyahu invoked the biblical story of Amalek, which is a story about destruction where the Israelis are ordered to destroy all of Amalek. He then repeated the same story in a special letter to the Israeli soldiers. Major General Ireland wrote in the daily newspaper, quote, "The state of Israel has no choice but to turn Gaza into a place that it is temporarily or permanently impossible to live in." He added, quote, "Creating a severe humanitarian crisis in Gaza is a necessary means to achieve the goal." And then he continued writing, "Gaza will become a place where no human being can exist." Or the finance minister described Palestinians as being Nazis, intensifying the dehumanization process that enables genocide and ethnic cleansing. He said there are 2 million Nazis in Judea and Samaria. He told that to Times of Israel, using the biblical term for Palestine. So we have a clear message from the head of the state about the needs to destroy population that, as the president portrayed them, are enemies. And it was going on, and we can go and quote, calling them human animals or even worse. Reality is that we have Palestinians who are for decades under Israeli military occupation, siege, decades of documented crime against them. And on the other side, we have a very powerful state with a powerful army, a nuclear power backed by governments of nearly all the Western countries. If you remember, I mentioned in Srebrenica at the beginning of the war, Bosnian forces had only 2 tanks. And on the other side, on Serbian side, there were 300 tanks. So it's not equal, obviously, as it is not equal to have nuclear power of one side and barehanded people, perhaps with stones, who are defending themselves. So when we take all elements of genocide, we have a clearly expressed intent. And as I said, it is the basic for judgment of genocide. We have demonizing language portraying Palestinians as a whole as enemies, as human animals, and it is quite easy to establish dynamic of violence. Number of killed by Israelis are huge, more than 20,000 Palestinians, children, babies, huge number of injured. We have more than half of the buildings in Gaza being destroyed. Israel had dropped tons of explosive on Gaza, and it is more than Hiroshima bombs, as we know. So any kind of claim that Israel is targeting specifically Hamas military installation is absurd claim. We have approximately total siege proclamation, cutting of water, food, fuel, medical supplies. We have a forced displacement of more than 1.5 million Palestinians of 2.3 total population of Gaza. Israel has ordered the evacuation of Palestinians from north to south, calculated to bring about the destruction of the group. The siege has created starvation, no medical supplies, no fuel, no even for treatment of patient. There are unbelievable overcrowding conditions. So we have the intent and we have dynamic of violence on the ground. Basically, we have a textbook elements for the case of genocide. And what is happening? How international community is responding. Slide 7, please, if I can have. Quite recently, on October 26, 120 countries voted in favor of a resolution before the United Nations calling for a humanitarian truce in the war in Gaza. 14 countries voted against, and 45 countries abstained, including 15 members of EU. Who is supportive to Israel? UK and Germany have been among the supporters of Israel during the crisis. The same is not true for non-Western nations. The Biden administration said the term genocide does not apply to current events in Gaza. But at the same time, they are claiming that genocide happened in Ukraine. On November 7th, US Secretary of State Antony Blinken met with his G7 counterparts in an attempt to forge a consensus on how to deal with the crisis in the Middle East. Speaking in Japan, he urged that the Western-dominated G7 speak with one clear voice on the Middle East crisis. We can presume what that voice should be. But there are also good things. Key rising powers from Global South have been among the nations outside the Arab world in their criticism of unwavering Western support of Israel. So we have countries like Indonesia, Turkey, and Iran, all with large Muslim population, have both, actually all three of them have been heavily critical of Israel's bombing campaign in Gaza. Then we have many African and Asian countries and nations who support Palestinian cause. Bolivia was the first country to cut ties with Tel Aviv in late October, followed by Belize, mid-November by Chile, by Colombia, by Honduras, by Bahrain, by Jordan, by Turkey, by Chad, and South Africa have all pulled their ambassadors from Israel. Brazil, in its capacity as then chair of the United Nations Security Council, introduced the resolution supporting the ceasefire in Gaza. President Silva de Lula of Brazil labeled the campaign in Gaza as being genocide. Mexico, permanent representative to the United Nations, called for the occupying power of Israel to cease its claim to the Palestinian territories. Qatar invested tremendous efforts through the mediation to stop the killing and help those in need. People are demonstrating all around the world. And there are also additional good news, and I would claim right moves. On 15th of November, a group of lawyers, 560 of them from Pakistan, Chile, Canada, Nigeria, representing Palestinian victims of Israel's attack on Gaza, headed by French lawyer Professor Dever, have filed a complaint to the International Criminal Court, arguing that Israel's action amount to the crime of genocide. So it is a big step in the right direction. Professor Dever said, The latest bombing of Gaza amounted to the most relevant crimes that the court had seen in decades. He continued, quote, "If the ICC does nothing, then it's the end of the ICC. We have sufficient proof for a mandate of arrest against Mr. Netanyahu." End of quote, the verse said. Further on, he said, governments must choose which camp they are on, if they support human rights or genocide. They cannot give speeches about international law and human rights and then accept Israel's attack without doing nothing. But it is not the only case which has been lodged. There are quite a few more. On November 9th, 3 Palestinian human rights groups urged the ICC body to investigate Israel for apartheid, genocide, and issue arrest warrant for Israeli leaders. Then another legal group, Justice for Gaza, another initiative, aims to bring together diverse voices from international society, leaders from different countries and representatives, asking again same thing from the court. There are Spain political leader Joana Belarra, British Jeremy Corbyn, and many others. And then there are state of Turkey. Turkey as a state lodged again case signed by 2,000 lawyers. They are requesting from ICC to start procedure proving that in Gaza has been conducted genocide, that Israel has been conducted genocide. Besides Turkey, who is not a member of ICC, there are countries which are member and which also start procedure. So Bangladesh, with their group of lawyers, started procedure and requested ICC to go ahead with the case. South Africa, same case. Bolivia, same case. Djibouti, same case. Pakistan, same case. So I would say global South nations are taking a firm stand. There are so many requests which are being directed towards ICC. And I must say, nobody's talking about those cases. Hardly you can see. I was at Doha Forum and I was listening and following and a few other days, and somehow people are not aware that the real legal battle of countries are going beside the scene. And inshallah, we'll see result. Can I have next slide, please? So states are generally reluctant to recognize a genocide. And why do we have that objection to recognize genocide? What's wrong? Why so many people needs to fight? Why so many lawyers needs to fight? Because judgment of genocide triggers obligation under the Genocide Convention. These obligations are to prevent and punish genocide, not only on the country which is conducting genocide, but also on the states which are part to Genocide Convention. But also, if genocide is going to be established, then we'll have a potential repercussion such as recognition may have on relations with the perpetrator states. So all those who supported all those who defend it. They might be also being accused for support of genocide. It's reason why countries are very reluctant, because they know that it is not going to finish only on country which indeed conducted genocide. Of course, we have to repeat calls on Security Council to use power and to make decisions which are proper and not being vetoed as last one. But never mind, even if Security Council is being blocked, there are non-governmental organizations which can push for the genocide proclamation. There are states which can push. So there are many subjects which can initiate procedure. And not that it is matter only which is going to help victims and relatives to gain a sense of closure and restore a measure of dignity of their loved one, but also it is giving more. If genocide is going to be proclaimed, it is first time then chance for a real way to Palestine statehood. Not only that people are going to get reparations, international recognition, impetus for prevention in the future, closure of that what's happened, but also their accountability in international law. And that accountability is precedent, and it is going to lead to fulfillment of rights. And finally, Palestinian people might come to the stage that they have fulfillment of their dreams. It is difficult to believe watching all those pictures and all that what is scrolling on in front of our eyes every night, but in my deep belief, ICC is a way how international community might help beside humanitarian help to Palestinian people, to Gaza the most. Palestinian people need a state. They need a state solution. And I remember, to touch personal experience, when President of Bosnia, establisher of Bosnia, Alija Izetbegovic, was in situation to sign agreement, Dayton agreement, which was not fair, but would stop death. He asked Yasser Arafat, he had a meeting with Yasser Arafat, and he told him, I'm in dilemma to sign for unjust peace or to continue fighting without knowing what result might be. But I know certainly that more people are going to die. Yasser Arafat told him, he said, take a state, take any state, just to have a state. To have a state, it's extremely important. Doesn't matter how weak that state is going to be, but you'll have framework, and you'll have frame, and you'll have international recognition. And then you'll continue fighting for better tomorrow. So it is what Palestinian people need. They need a state. Even two-state solution is a solution. But without state, it is very difficult. 13 million of Palestinians living everywhere. And only 1 million are living in Gaza, actually in Israel, being under tremendous pressure and occupation. And it is extremely difficult for them, not only for those who are being killed, but those who are living in. So just to perhaps finish, to conclude with one information. You might know it, you might not know. 124 countries are members of ICC. And 124 members are obliged to fight against genocide. We have to have those countries on the board to help Palestine, to help Gaza, to come with a judgment, not against somebody, but a judgment which is going to defend international legal system, which all countries established. We have to say, and we have to defend international law, and we have to defend humanitarian law. If it is not going to be defended in the Gaza case, then all of us are losers. Thank you very much, and if you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer.
I don't want to stand while you're sitting, so if you permit me.
Sure, absolutely.
Hvala puno. Thank you very much, Dr. Turkovic, for sharing this story and for putting it into context. And I guess for many of us who didn't know about what actually happened and and how long the process was to seek justice, to now at least have something to kind of go research and look into. I mean, I'm glad that you didn't kind of share too much of the history. Like you said, every single moment that's happening right now is history, and will be reflected upon and looked at. So history is happening as we speak. So, and we have a lot of resources today at our disposal. So for those who are students who are here who didn't know about this, look into what happened in Bosnia. Around that same time, Rwanda was happening, or maybe a little bit after. And then look at the tribunal system and the long process of trying to seek justice. And then let's have that give us some hope that the Palestinian people, when Palestine is free and Palestine is able to also be an active member of the international community as a country with representation everywhere within the United Nations, that they will be able to get and enjoy the success of seeking and getting retribution and justice and reparations for those who are being wronged and oppressed today. I want to share two things really quickly, just if you'd permit me. The first is how long after an event like this the trauma stays, or some form of trauma. And I'll tell you, because of the experience that I had with my host brother in Bosnia. I was there when I went to teach. It was 2007, and I'm with him. And in America, if you don't have a big meal to eat, straight away, really quickly, you can make peanut butter and jelly sandwich. So I'm making a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and I give him a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and he's like, "No peanuts for me." And I'm thinking, "Oh, I forgot, maybe the allergy." And he says, "No, peanut butter reminds me of the war," because he was a kid during the war, and that's all we had to eat. That's all they had to eat. There was a jar of peanut butter, maybe it was a big jar, and they would just kind of take that, and so peanut butter reminded him of the conflict, even though he was a kid. So it's just some of those things. There's always going to be something for some of these kids that we're seeing today who will be survivors that in the future could trigger and can just kind of remind them of the injustice that happens today. The other thing I wanted to share really quickly is the two maps that are on here. I know we're talking about Srebrenica and Gaza. I think almost everybody by now can either close their eyes and draw almost a map of Palestine. Well, look at the map of Bosnia, and I'll tell you what I see when I see Bosnia, because I've been to Bosnia a couple of times. The heart, the human heart, is says to look like a fist. So if you try to make a fist, right? That looks like the human heart. It's about the size of a human heart. For me, it looks like Bosnia in a way. Okay, this one right here. Okay. When you go to Bosnia, I'm sitting next to our former foreign minister. For just today, let me pretend to be the unofficial tourism minister of Bosnia. It's a country you must visit, because when you go to Bosnia, you will leave your heart there. Okay, so I'm seriously saying that. It's the food, it's the mountains, it's the waterfalls, it's the rivers. It's such a beautiful place. Such a beautiful place.
But there is a formula how you are going to love Bosnia and how you are going to return back. And I know that you practice it. They are saying if you drink water from Baš Čaršija, center of Sarajevo, you'll always tend to return back. So it's the reason why Suljo loves Bosnia so much.
Thank you very much, Tora. With that said, I'd like to invite Dr. Recep, the Dean of the College of Islamic Studies, to the stage to thank our speaker and also to present to her a token of appreciation and also to give the closing remarks. Dr. Recep? Are there any questions? I just feel like we have a lot of food for thought to unpack already, so I don't know if we... Any questions? Going once? Yes, there's a question right here. Okay. Do we have another mic? Please.
I would like to thank Dr. Bisera for her wonderful speech and history lesson that she gave us today. I would like to ask her from her personal experience, because she's lived through the war in Bosnia, and in the spirit of drawing parallels between Gaza and Srebrenica today, to reflect back on how media played a role in the perpetration of crimes and the normalization of the context in which the genocide in Bosnia happened, and if there are parallels that we can look at today with obviously social media and the media that we use in perpetrating and enabling behaviors that lead to genocide.
Thank you.
Thank you. Excellent question. Yeah, during the war in Bosnia, we believed that media is totally poisonous, except few journalists like Christian Amanpour or some journalists who came and made a report. Basically, many of them, especially from neighboring countries, are being politically instructed to write totally unreliable things, what is happening, and basically fueling soldiers on the other side. I can see that similar things are happening today, but due to social media, which is much more free, somehow there is a way to overcome that what is imposed and to avoid state-controlled media, which is still very strong and very present. Maybe it's not state-controlled that much as financially controlled media. So you know exactly, if you watch CNN, you know what you are going to get. And you get surprised by information. And then when you compare with Al Jazeera, it is totally different set of news which you are getting. I mean, sometimes you are struck with lack of information, even about essential happenings that day. So unfortunately, media is still with negative elements. But there are also things which are, in a way, showing tendency of improvement. And I do believe that with more elements of justice and with more knowledge and with openness which is happening nowadays, and with a lot of information which are circulated, media would not have that much of influence as it used to have in our case when everything was so close and so packed, and you were really depending on that what you are going to read on official media channels or in official newspapers.
Any more questions? Anyone else? Can we have a microphone there to the gentleman in the thobe?
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam.
First of all, I really would like to thank you for sharing us your experience and your opinion about what's going on now and what happened before in Bosnia. I'm from Republic of Kosovo. I'm a student here, and we kind of share the same history. So I was wondering, like, in your opinion, should you think that, for example, those countries, for example, between Palestine and Israel, or for example, Bosnia, Serbia, should we, like those countries, in your opinion, like, should we have good relations? Like, should we forget what happened to the past, or no? Like, should we try to forget and to strengthen our relations in the future, or no? Thank you.
Of course, it's always needed to have good relations, but there are also preconditions to have a good relation. You know, if we are starting from our Islamic belief, you have a right to seek justice. Of course, if you can forget, maybe it's better. It is better. But it is very difficult to ask mother who lost 9 sons, who lost husband, who lost members of family, to forgive and to forget. Maybe to forgive, yes. But to forget, very difficult. And if you cannot forget, can you fully trust your old enemy and new friend who is telling that now he is different? Is he really different? You know, we people in Bosnia, we did not have only one genocide. We have 4 genocides that we know, and maybe more than that. But 4 of them have been proven through the history. And genocide has been conducted by the same people. So obviously, things are going in cycles. Yes, we have to live together, but we have to be very cautious and prepare for disappointment, because disappointments are also possible. And you people at Kosovo, you had pretty much similar experience. So I do believe that establishment of networking, of good cooperation, of even presentation, joint presentation towards third part of the world is possible, but prerequisite for that is reckoning and accepting that what's happened. We in Bosnia are still faced with denial of genocide from Serbia. We do not have any political leaders who came and apologized for genocide. Rather, we are faced on a daily basis with denial. And I know that in Kosovo, there are pretty much similar situations. So we have to be brave enough, if we did something, what is wrong, to admit it, to apologize, and then to go ahead. Without that, it's very difficult to return full trust. Might be cooperation from necessity, but certainly it's not cooperation from friendship.
Can we have the microphone over there? To the gentleman with the kafiyya.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you very much,
Salam.
Doctor, for your valuable speech. My question is, as us, the youth, the community in Qatar, what do you think that it can do the biggest impact for the situation now in Gaza? In terms of like our own capacity, in terms like we're sharing in social media, we're going to protests, but what do you think, yani, as an honest advice that can support the situation now in Gaza, if I may ask?
Yes, I think that it might seem to be without use, but I do believe that petition and support and asking your lawyers here in Qatar to organize themselves and to lodge the petition, which might turn into sentence, is very important. So if you put pressure in that direction, we'll have one more country on the board. You know, sometimes people are expecting too much from the government, and government is under the extreme pressure, and Qatari government is doing really a lot, more than anybody else, I would say, or at least that much as few others are doing. But there are many things which ordinary people, ordinary students, youth can do. And I think that you have to have some sort of streamlining what is possible to be done. My suggestion would be organize yourself and organize and try to talk with different lawyers, knock at their doors, explain them why it is important, and try to turn their attention towards good deeds they might do.
One last question. Okay, I see two hands. Is there anybody else? Any of the sisters? Okay, so we'll just make these last two questions. Can we combine the questions? Can we hear your question and then hear this question? Is it possible to just take those two?
Sure.
Okay, so please.
I have a question regarding the education. What do you think, how did the education, the books used at the school in Bosnia impact the young generation in Bosnia? And from that, what can we learn to educate the next generation in Palestine? What are the lessons learned in terms of writing books, using them at school for the next generation?
Excellent. Right here, and we'll have that be the last question with the gentleman with the tracksuit.
Thanks a lot, Doctor, for your presentation and the info. Yeah, you have introduced to us to know the situation or the common points between Bosnia and Gaza, the war in both of them today. I am Egyptian, and I know that Egypt and Jordan, as borders of Palestine today, especially Gaza, they are constrained with international agreements and conventions around the world. But as an Egyptian who feels and might be crying every night about what's happening in Gaza, I want to know our role as Egypt today. They are doing the role that they should do. I'm not asking my government to intervene in terms of military or make something like this, violating the international agreements. But what should Egypt do and Jordan do in their powers or in their limitness? I want to understand they are doing what should they do, so I can, for example, I have a voice on the social media. I can spread the awareness among my families, my community. I have a heard voice in my community back to Egypt. What should they do to tell about this and to inform about this. That's all. Thank you.
Excellent.
Thank you. You know, people here in Qatar should be really proud what their government is doing. People in Turkey should be proud what their government is doing. In some other countries. There are also countries where we are not too proud what our governments are doing. They could have done much more. So you put me in the most difficult situation. How to criticize your government if my own government is doing nothing? And in regard to question about education, yeah, you touch very painful topic. Till recently, even nowadays, but it's not so exposed, in Bosnia, we have 2 schools under the same roof. What does it mean? We have 2 curriculum which are being taught. We have 2, even 3 histories which are being taught. We have perpetrators of the worst crime which are in some books being portrayed as heroes. And we have heroes which are being portrayed as war criminals. And then we have part of the country where Bosnian people, Bosnian children, Bosniak children, means Muslim children, cannot learn about their own history, and they cannot be taught on their own language. All that is reality of one post-genocide society. There are many things and many rooms to be repaired. But let's finish with optimistic thought. We do have a framework. We do have a state. We are independent and sovereign state. So it is up to Bosnians to be smarter, to be more online of their belief, to follow all that what they inherited, primarily religion, culture, to improve their akhlaq, to be better people, and by being better Muslims, daily practicing Muslims, living their religion, not exercising their religion, but living their religion. They'll contribute not only towards their country, their people, but towards everybody in that country, because they are going to be much better human beings. And we have to improve ourselves. And by improving ourselves and not depending on authority, on political leaders, on those with the money, relying only on one who is above us and who has the power to lead us and to judge us. If we come to the stage that we have that what we as a Muslim believe, which is Alhamdulillah, thanks to God, and be grateful for that what we have, and try to improve our condition with full heart of greatness for that what we have, then we may do something, and we may improve, and we'll improve our books, textbooks, and we'll improve our condition of life, and we'll improve our relations with others. But firstly, we have to be up to the standard which is written for us. We have a recipe. We know what to do. It's only a matter of our will and practicing to do it.
Ameen. Jazakumullah khairan. Let me just say that I pray that the country of Bosnia that I love so much has a person like you as president one day. Okay. So with that said, Dr. Rajab, would like to present you with the token of appreciation.
Thank you very much.
Thank you to you.
Yeah. Do you want to see Dr. Turkovic more in our college? Do you want her come and teach a class? Yes? Strong yes. Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you to you.
This was a very deep academic analysis from a first-hand witness of the events. You rarely get this. Like academics don't have this kind of analysis as insight, but she combines both academic side and also the practice side. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, brother
Shukran,
Rajab. Thank you.
jazakallah khairan.
Shukran.
We are
jazilan.
very happy and honored, and we would like to see you more frequently in our college.
Inshallah. I'll be.
Jazakumullah khairan. Thank you very much and have a wonderful night. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.